What's good, everyone? I'm Luke Martin. Welcome to the Coinist Podcast, the best place to keep up with everything happening in the crypto market. So let's get right into the show. If you're new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button. I do not want you missing out on these conversations, hearing from the top funds, best analysts, biggest exchanges every single week. I got you covered. And if you're a returning listener, welcome back. It's nice. So many shows, so many conversations. I have learned a ton just by doing this show, but also from the guests. Actually, Happy New Year's as well. Today's show is a little bit special. It is the New Year's episode, but the show must go on, and this conversation is going to be a lot of fun. You've probably heard about buying a fraction of a Bitcoin. Today, we're going to talk about buying a fraction of a Lambo. Lambo is a meme that's so synonymous with Bitcoin and with crypto. Everyone wants to make enough money that they can buy a Lambo. Well, for about $150, there's a company now that is letting you buy shares or a piece of a Lambo or a fraction of a Lambo, and we can look at how those investments are performing, how investments in those luxury watches or high-end collectibles, all those different things are performing. And if you're wondering, why are we covering that instead of looking at Bitcoin? It's because there's so many similarities here, and this is actually the start of a new series that I want to launch, and this is called the Store of Value series. The inspiration behind this is I heard Spencer Bogart talking about, instead of comparing Bitcoin to gold and saying, Bitcoin's going to take some of that market share from gold and they're competing things, I actually view it like this. And as Spencer kind of laid out, it's a $21 trillion bucket that Bitcoin is competing for against art, high-end collectibles, and gold, and also real estate as a store of value. So it's not just gold. And my whole thesis is, when people are investing in these store of value assets, whether it be Ferraris and Lambos, which we're going to talk about today, or they're investing in gold because they're a gold bug, or they're investing in Bitcoin because they believe in the ideals of what Bitcoin can do as a new form of money, or if they're investing in art because their family's been interested in art, whatever that might be, it's generally based on what they're interested in. Oftentimes, someone isn't comparing their art investment to the return characteristics of if they invested in a Lamborghini. They're investing in art because they're interested in art. Now, sure, they are investing in art because they want to invest in a store of value, but generally they're investing in what they're interested in. And my big thesis is, and the real reason I want to do this series is because I know there's so many young people coming up that are going to understand Bitcoin, that are going to understand this technology, and are going to understand the purpose and really the need, the necessity that Bitcoin can fill in our society. Bitcoin, in my opinion, it's inevitable that it will continue to eat away at some of the market share of these other store of value assets. So it's probably helpful to think about these store of value assets as well. Looking at investing in Lamborghinis, looking at investing in gold, looking at investing in art, and it might actually help you understand your investment in Bitcoin or understand the investment characteristics of where this money is flowing if it's not flowing into Bitcoin, right? So either way, it should be a really fun series. This is the first one. I'm speaking with Rob of Rally Road. Rally Road is a company that lets you buy fractions of a Lambo or any other high-end collectible or asset. It's a fascinating concept. Now for $150, you can get a piece of a $600,000 car. These cars have been performing very well, some doing 5 or 10% each year. They have some baseball cards that have sold for $150,000 that have gone up every single year they've existed. So this conversation is fascinating. I learned a ton. I love cars, and I know that there's a huge meme out there of people wanting to get so rich with Bitcoin or with other coins that they can buy a Lambo. Well, after today's episode, you'll know how to buy a Lambo right here. So enjoy the episode, guys. Before we get into that, I do have a message from my amazing sponsor, and that's eToro, the best place for U.S. traders to buy and sell cryptocurrency. The most exciting feature about this platform is the copy trader feature. Create an account on eToro.com, or if you want to use the link right below this video, that's eToro.com/VentureCoinist. If you're listening on YouTube, that link is right below the video. For everyone else on iTunes and Spotify, eToro.com/VentureCoinist. Once you log into eToro, you're going to notice this crypto platform has more tools for you to manage your portfolio, view performance, and see what other traders are doing than anyone else in the industry. Now let's walk through that copy trader feature, which lets you scroll through the top Bitcoin, ETH, XRP traders in that platform, view their performance, and see one you like, and just click copy. You can choose how much of your money you want to copy, see how well they've done in the past, what they're doing right now, and you automatically copy your trades while you go on with your day. So if you're listening to the show, watching that football game on Sunday, if you're enjoying the holidays, you're at work, you can copy that top trader you selected, or if you want to trade for yourself, you can always do that too. You can even get paid when other traders copy you. So go to eToro.com/VentureCoinist and start copy trading today. And that's all I got for an intro. I don't want to waste any more time. Enjoy the episode. You can now learn how to buy a fraction of a Lambo for 2020. Enjoy your New Year's, guys, and I'll see you all soon. I'm pretty hyped about this one. I'm joined by Rob of Rally Road. What's going on, Rob?
Same old, Luke. What's up, man?
Doing well. Like I said, I'm pretty hyped about this. I mean, I'm excited to speak with almost everyone I have in the show because I'm genuinely interested. But as I've been researching your company, I think the audience is going to quickly learn there's a lot of meme transfer here with people owning, the Lambo meme in crypto. You can own a fraction of a Lambo, which we're going to talk about there. Were you a crypto guy? What's the synergy here? I imagine there's a lot of crossover there.
Yeah, I mean, it is when we started this business, called it like 2016 leading into 2017, crypto in general was unavoidable. I think that especially in New York, this capital of finance, we were sort of in conversations about what we want to do with the business and what we want to do in terms of regulation, where we want to take it. And this was like right before the real ICO boom. And it started a ton of conversations in-house to the point that we had to sort of limit everything we talked about in the crypto world to focus on the business to 10 minutes a day. Between like 10:50 and 11 a.m. was like crypto talk time. And then we shut it down to do real business and get back to work and building the platform. But it was unavoidable for sure.
Yeah, that's crazy. All right, we'll take a step back. I imagine I've been following your timeline. I know things have been kind of crazy. I mean, just even following what's happening, it's crazy stuff. I'm going to let you walk through the timeline of Rally Road. Let's start from the beginning. How'd this idea come to fruition? Are you the first company to ever have this fractional ownership of these collectibles? I mean, the market's fascinating. There's just a lot of comparisons to other store value assets. And crypto, a lot of the ideals are the same. So how did Rally Road come about?
Yeah, so I mean, we always looked at it as like there's got to be a new gold. I think the way Bitcoin has always been looked at from the sort of from the recreational perspective is this real store of value and the idea of a digital gold. For us, we always thought if there was a way to bring these tangible assets to market in that fractionalized way that people were starting to get comfortable with when it came to sort of crypto really early, that we could do it in a really meaningful way with the retail investor. So we looked at sort of equities as one bucket where you can invest in like Ferrari as a company, or you can invest in sort of, one of these watchmakers from a company standpoint, and then going all the way to digital assets as the idea of fractionalization and sort of getting a piece of this digital money. We want to live somewhere in between. Yeah. So myself, my co-founders, Max and Chris, we sat down and started thinking, if there was a way to do this as sort of a regulated entity and allow retail investors access to the stuff that's worth, millions of dollars and generates these returns, but also has huge enthusiast communities, that we could do something really special. So in 2015, we started putting it on paper. 2016, we started building it.
That's crazy. What was the first investment? I mean, were you investing in this stuff before, like personally? You had to have some kind of interest in cars. Like, where did it stem from even before that?
Yeah, so like the origin story of the company is rooted in Porsche. So Porsche is this really polarizing sort of collectible vehicle. Even for collectors, you have like the Porsche people and the non-Porsche people. And Porsche is one that it really took off quick. The way that early Bitcoin is talking about Lambo is the way that like real car collectors are talking about Porsche, where some people will be like, it's a fad, it's the whole thing. And others were making a ton of money on it. So our CEO, my co-founder, Chris, had enough money to either buy a house or this very specific Porsche he wanted back in like 2008 or 2009.
Which one was it?
The house, because that's like the investment. That was always looked at as like the American dream investment.
Yeah.
And in retrospect, the house is up like 7%, and that Porsche was like a 10x or an 11x from that point. So
from what year? 2002.
What's up?
2002. It's been a 10x.
Yeah, something like that. Since
oh my God.
It was like a 10x. It was a crazy run that was unprecedented, even in the Porsche community. So we were thinking like this is something that this small group knows about, but if everybody knew about it, it would be something that we could really bring new liquidity to the market, but new investors, and make a new investment class out of it. So we started thinking about cars first. That's the one that when you think about a car investment, it was to this point a really small group of super wealthy investors who were working through the auction circuit and kind of traded with each other. And we really want to open it up to everybody. To do that, we had to build something that was really a consumer product. To do what an eToro did or a Coinbase did in the crypto space for this type of stuff was going to be a little more complex because the infrastructure didn't exist. So the first thing we did was sit down with our legal team and think about how can we turn a car into stock. And what we came up with was this Reg A Plus, which is really about very similar to the way that crowdfunding leverages the existing laws to allow non-accredited investors into what is considered a non-standard asset investment or a non-standard investment. And once we found sort of the structure of making that work legally, it was about building the app and building the consumer interface that people would be comfortable with. So that was 2016, 2017-ish. We launched our first asset which was a 1977 Lotus Esprit, which is a little bit esoteric, but from a design standpoint, is really sort of tops. It's something that finds its way into fashion, into sort of sneaker design, and it's this really unique sort of James Bond, Roger Moore style Lotus that was getting attention from the space, from like the bigger design and collector space, but not enough. So we want to take that and turn it to stock, and that was the first one we did, which was essentially a $77,000 initial offering. Right now it has a couple hundred investors in it. It's up something like 35% since we launched, and it's something that also now is finding its way back into pop culture. It's something that Elon Musk has credited with a lot of what Tesla came from. Lotus engineers were the first ones working on Teslas. It's always front of mind now. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get ahead of these trends in a way that these cars and these watches and all these assets have cultural significance, but they also have strong returns, and they're just interesting pieces of art.
Definitely. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. I guess the Roadster kind of does look like the Lotus a little bit.
Yeah, that was like a Lotus Roadster, basically. It was something that team, the Lotus team, was always in the background of the engineering team at Tesla, and they broke away pretty recently, considered. But that was like Elon Musk credits that James Bond, sort of the underwater Lotus, was like one of the inspirations for what became Lotus, so what became Tesla.
That's crazy. Okay. Were you the first company to do partial ownership? As I think of like Bitcoin, I mean, that's one of I was just talking to Tom Shaughnessy, Delphi Digital, and we were just talking about alternative assets in general. And I was thinking, what alternative assets can everyone invest in, right? You either have to be accredited to get into a hedge fund or a venture firm or all these different things. Sure, you can get into commodities, maybe, right, if you have a brokerage account. There's not that many alternative assets that you can just get into like Bitcoin, right? The average person can, and now with your offerings in Rally Road, right, I don't know all the laws, but the average person can. Do you have to be accredited, and were you the first person to do this? Like, was anyone else doing partial?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, we were the first to do it as for non-accredited investors, and the first to add liquidity too. So what existed before this, there were funds for cars and for art and for watches, but a lot of them were based on, like you said, you had to be, they were either Reg C or they were something where it required accreditation. There were also redemption periods. So it wasn't something where you can kind of like figure out a way out. You have to wait for the whole position to sell. Some of them were auction based. What we tried to do was do it at a consumer level, which at retail had never been done before. So even to this day, like, 4 years later from the initial idea and from inception, we're the first to have a liquid exchange for any of this stuff. So we do all of our stuff through registered broker dealers. We surface it into the app, but we do it in a way where anybody can come in, buy during that initial offering period. 3 months later, we open up trading windows, which work kind of similar to a Dutch auction. We're printing one price end of day, once every 30 or 60 days, give or take, for each asset. But we're doing it in a way that, we have a standard bid-ask table that everybody can kind of look at and understand it before they invest, without putting any money sort of into the app, before they understand how the whole thing works. And we're definitely the first to do that, start to finish, and make that full round trip.
That's insane. So it's not only you're the broker, but you're also the exchange. That's probably the biggest part. I mean, liquidity now.
So it's one of those things where like what was always crazy to me, like just starting to invest in Bitcoin early, as these new apps started to come out, like 2016, 2017, and you're holding in your hand, is that immediate liquidity. And the idea that I don't have to necessarily wait to find a buyer, that ecosystem is always going to be there. And we always thought about it as, we want to be a little bit of everything. What's missing from a lot of these sort of, even from equity platforms, you have to get into like an IPO of a real company. You got to be way early on the balance sheet. You got to be super early on the cap table. You have to have enough money to come to the table. We want to give somebody the access at the very inception of something going live, all the way through ownership, whether they're a short-term, medium-term, or long-term holder, and give them the option to sell before the asset actually exits the platform, or before sort of a hostile takeover of that asset takes it off the platform. And that was something that we always knew. If we could do that correctly and sort of promise and give a little bit of insight into what that liquidity looks like, we'll have people that become sort of long-term investors in the app, which is what we've had to this point.
What kind of people are doing this? Is it mostly young people? Is it older people that were already car collecting? Like, what kind of mix? I know you've built a pretty solid community. I saw your day at Soho. There was crowds of people around your cars. I mean, it's impressive, but like, where are they coming from?
Honestly, like, it's still shocking to me that people care that much. It's great to see it, but like, we first started this platform and we thought, like, the enthusiast community, we knew it was going to be a little polarizing. We thought like a car enthusiast or a watch enthusiast or any of these deals that we run in the app would gravitate towards the people who know it best. What we've seen is that there's this really young, sophisticated investor class, and we credit, the Robinhoods of the world and the eToros of the world and the Coinbases for creating this investor who understands the dynamics of how investing works. And they're young, they're 25, 26, 27-year-olds, but they're savvy. They understand what a bid and ask is. They understand what, a hold looks like versus a quick flip. They don't look at it as like chasing the Lambo really, really quick and something like this. They look at it as sort of a compliment to all those things. So we always want to live next to the eToros and next to the Robinhoods of the world. We want to be in a place where you have, your equities, your crypto, and then your assets live on Rally Road. So we're seeing a lot of the same people, I think, gravitate towards those platforms, come to our app and really look at it as a meaningful place to have their money.
How are you choosing? So you went with the Lotus first. I understand that decision. I imagine you're involved with the decision making. You probably have a team of other people that, how do you choose what gets added, right? Is it just you're into Porsche, you want to add a Porsche, you want to add watches? Like what's going into, you said down the road, you want to have stocks, you want to have it all in one platform. How are you making these decisions? Like what are you taking gauges on what they're doing, whatever's hot in the market? What is it?
Yeah, it's a little bit of everything. So we have, when it comes to acquisition, we have like a very standard 18-point checklist that for a car, it's something like, the mileage and if it's been a repaint or if it's all original, if everything numbers match, if it's for, a watch, it's similar dynamics where if it's never been touched by anyone other than the manufacturer, if it's brand new with box and papers, all the elements that contribute to value. Then we have sort of this data engine that speaks to the social relevance and the cultural relevance of something. So it's a weird dynamic now where like 80s and 90s have come back to the forefront for a 25 or a 26-year-old who might have been born in 1999 or 97, but they recognize what the 80s and 90s mean in terms of design and cultural influence. So if we see something like a 80s era Ferrari having a lot of social chatter or popping up in like a music video or something where it's part of a big ad campaign, or like something like we have in our retail location here on Lafayette Street, Soho, we keep all the marquee assets in one place. So downstairs right now is like a really important Mickey Mantle card. There's a one-of-one sort of Hermes Birkin bag, which has a lot of value. But right in the center is a 1982 Aston Martin, which is one that is coming back to front of mind. It started to show up in the James Bond previews for the next movie. So now we have the exact car from James Bond, from the next 007 movie downstairs for everyone to kind of see and understand why it's important. So anytime we could factor that sort of social relevance and that the talking points and why something's significant in conversation, and it matches that 18-point checklist of the must-haves when it comes to provenance and sort of originality, then that's a must for us. And then we have a great network of partners and advisors of people that are always trying to source new items for us that are all over the world sourcing those for us, that are looking for those things off that checklist.
Plus, with your collection, I imagine it's a similar group to Bitcoin. People that are in Bitcoin only talk about Bitcoin, only think about Bitcoin. I imagine people that are investing in cars and are thinking about this type of stuff, thinking about the culture. If they invest in a Ferrari, they're going to go show their friends that Ferrari. Like, walk me through the whole process, though. First, how does someone get in the IPO? Because I imagine now they're doing pretty well. And then what do I get when I invest? How does that all work? Just kind of walk me through the beginning to end. I'm really curious on that process.
Yeah, so what we do is we have it set up right now where you can link a bank account and make an investment without carrying a balance, which always was a big thing for us. So you go into the app, you fill out some of the general KYC data, which is necessary right now because it is all qualified through the SEC.
Sure.
And everything goes through these registered broker dealers, so it requires all that information, similar to setting up any brokerage account.
Robinhood, yeah.
Like a Robinhood, very similar. So then you go into the app and there's sort of a carousel that shows all the assets that are available. So in the next few weeks, we'll have, a Ferrari. We have this Friday, we have a 1970s era Audemars Piguet, the original sort of A-series watch that started that whole process of making people excited about watches. We have like the contract from Muhammad Ali's Fight of the Century at the Garden going live. So inside the carousel, you see all of those, all these things that are important to either you, someone you know, or at least generate conversation. Mm-hmm. Once you get in, we have initial offerings, like our version of an IPO every Friday. So, last Friday was a Lamborghini truck that's very specific. It's something that very few people have seen on the road. We brought that to our store for the day so you can kind of invest on the spot. And then once you see what you like, you can hit the notify me button. We'll drop you a text or a quick email when it goes live, put it on Instagram on that Friday around noon every week. You make that first investment. What you see is sort of the market cap, which is the total value, which is sort of sourced similar to the way that you do an IPO, where it's based on comps and past auction results and insurance values. It's broken into some amount of shares, somewhere between 2,000 and 10,000 shares. So
what if it's sold out? Like, how are you deciding? Because we run into this problem with crypto. Yeah. All of a sudden, people start realizing you can make money on this, or there's something that's really hyped. Everyone wants to get in. It gets oversold. You have to wait list. How are you doing this?
Yeah, so we cap everything out to 100%, so it's never oversubscribed. So what we do is, like, we don't necessarily want to sort of have a mad dash for everyone to get in.
Yeah.
Become that a little bit, because I think people are starting to realize that there's not returns here, but we're sourcing, stuff that we truly do believe in too. And we as a company invest in each asset up to 10% of the value, where we can't sell that. Ours are locked up forever, so that the incentives are aligned. What we're trying to do with that. But if we have a $100,000, $200,000 asset, which is somewhere in the range of what we normally do on a Friday, we'll do 2 or 3 of those. it usually sells out in somewhere between 5 and 20 minutes. So we want to make sure everyone who wants to be part of it hits that notify me button and gets the first look. And we do that anytime we possibly can. But it is a little bit of sort of, I don't want to say fear of missing out, but there is this element of we want people that really care about it to be able to sort of know now is the right time to get in. And that's the IPO process. So those go quick. We lock those up after the IPO sells out. Anywhere between 200 and 1,000 investors will be in any one asset.
Okay.
After 90 days, we'll open it back up for trading. So once monthly after that is when we do that bid-ask Dutch auction style, print one price, bring all the buyers and sellers together. In that window of time, the 90 days, we'll always surface news, information about new price comps, anything that could affect value, anything in the overall market that's affecting perception. All that stuff goes back into the app and through the communication with those investors.
That's crazy. So what? I mean, I don't even know if you can share this data, but it'd be really curious to see the normal crowd that's investing in collectible cars and watches and things like that. The time horizon is probably pretty long. Now with the app and this instant liquidity, I mean, some people want to be in it for the long term, but are you seeing more flipping happening, or are people just getting in? Like, what's the investor behavior like? You don't have to get specific if you can't.
But we surface all this, like transparency is so important
for
us. We try and surface as much of this as we can. That's not that data that's privy to sort of our fundraising or any of the stuff that we do in the background to every user. I think that we've seen very responsible investing. I think that part of doing this Dutch auction style, where it's not continuous market, it's not 24/7, and it's printed at one price, gives people the ability to sort of, put their bid or their ask in and do it in a way where there's no guarantees on that price getting hit, but you can follow the market throughout the course of a day, that 9:30 to 4 p.m. once every 30 to 60 days, and getting kind of where you fit in. What we've seen is that the investor that comes in, a lot of times after they buy their first asset during an IPO, they buy their first set of shares, they'll put a couple on the trading block when the first sort of trading window opens up for that asset, but they're kind of testing the waters. I think they see these living in that in-between state where you have your 401k and then you have your crypto. And you have the things that are going to spike and go crazy right away somewhere in your portfolio. Then you have your kind of boring, let it sit there and see what happens. I think we live right in that middle ground right now, where people see what these things have done for the last 10 or 15 or 20 years because it has such a long history. And they're able to sort of pick and choose when they want to be a part of it, how long they want to be a part of it. We've seen really, really responsible trading because of that to this point.
So people really are treating it as more of a store of value than like a speculative, I'm putting money in this in 90 days, I'm trying to flip it and make 2x. I mean, that's how they're treating it. They're investing in this for 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah, and they're doing it even now. If someone has a big position, we have big accounts on our platform. It's meant for retail, but we do have sort of those bigger accounts with the hundreds of thousands of users that we have right now. We're in a position that those people, I think they treat it a little bit, people with the bigger accounts they're not trying to dump, you know what I mean? They're not trying to sort of first trading window, put up a crazy ask and hope to get the whole thing hit. I think they're looking at it more as like, this is a great place. It's a store of value. If things go well and there's some new auction comps or there's new demand in the space and I can make some money on it, that's great. But we also have a market that things do go up and down. It's not something that's automatically always up. I think it's similar to Bitcoin, but in a way where people look at it more as like, I see this as my tangible asset relative to my intangible asset, which can have way more speculation around it in a way that I got to pay attention to it every single day. We don't have people that come in and watch every single day. We have people that come in and they check on their portfolio, but they're not in a rush to buy or sell. They're just there to be part of what we're doing and be a part of building that community.
So what do people get after the IPO? After the IPO happens, trading opens 90 days later. Suppose they don't sell, they get a piece of it on their phone. They get a little, are they looking at this through some 3D goggles, VR? Yeah, what's going on here?
You're in our roadmap. So we have a bunch of the AR and the cool stuff coming very soon. We'll start teasing that later this week. Right now, you're getting that depending on your share purchase. You're getting a nice stock certificate. I think a bunch of them are behind me right now up top there.
Yeah, I see them up there.
Yeah, so you get a bunch of, you get a nice stock certificate. You get access to a bunch of events that we do in our first retail location, a bunch of pop-ups that we're doing. We're setting up a really big partner program too. We have a lot of great brands and they're similar to what we do, where they're either watch manufacturers or some whiskey brands or some really interesting chances to sort of create great partnerships with our investors and the brands they care about and those brands, the potential people that they care about being a part of it. So we'll be doing more of that soon too, but a lot of what we're trying to do is build the experience. Right now, it's very much sort of a cool place to put some of your money and see what happens, and you get access to great stuff that we can provide in that community. Long term, we'll make sure that there's always sort of, the free tier, you can come in and just treat that as your portfolio, but some of the great stuff that comes with it, albeit digital or some of the tangible stuff with some of those partner brands to be a big part of that share purchase going forward.
All right, quick break in the action before we get back to the show. I have a message from my amazing sponsor, Bybit, who I've been working with for quite some time, since the beginning of the show, really helping make this show possible every single week. Please do go check them out if you're a trader. One of the best places to trade Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, EOS, both directions with leverage and with no overload. Overload is a problem that a lot of traders have faced over the last few years, and that has not been another platform that has good enough liquidity or has good enough volume for traders to be able to trade Bitcoin versus the dollar with leverage, hedge, all those different things. You can do that on Bybit.com with no overload. So if you are an active trader, if you do like trading XRP, if you do like hedging those alt positions, or if you do like trading Bitcoin, I really think you'll enjoy checking out Bybit.com. You can also go to trading.bybit.com/venturecoinist and get a little deposit bonus just for using my link. It's right below the video if you watch here on YouTube. For everyone else listening on iTunes or Spotify, just go to Bybit.com. One of the best places to trade Bitcoin with no overload, solving the problems that traders want fixed. Thank you, Bybit, for sponsoring the show. I think you guys will enjoy that one. And without further ado, let's jump right back into things. Enjoy the rest of the episode, guys. Yeah, I can imagine. What's all right, now I'm curious on some of these items. What's the most expensive piece? I saw, you said you did three usually each Friday. They're like 100, 150K. You're doing 500, $500,000 each week. What are some of these items going for? I mean, what's the most expensive car you put up?
The most expensive car was a $640,000 one-of-one Lamborghini Countach Turbo S. So this is a car that everybody knows that Lamborghini Countach looks like, and it got a lot of play from Wolf of Wall Street, and like it came back into the ethos of pop culture recently. But this one was a turbo version that was essentially a prototype made by the engineers from the factory that we knew, like the car community knew it kind of existed, but wasn't sure where it was. So someone that sources a bunch of our vehicles saw a picture of this car sitting in the back of a garage in an estate sale from Reno, Nevada. And we basically sent them out there to get the car and bring it back for us. And even on Lamborghini's Wikipedia page, I think it's been updated recently, but until about a month ago, it said people aren't sure if the car even existed. Even Lamborghini wasn't sure if it still existed. So we found that one, brought it to New York, put it in our store downstairs. Crazy red color, these twin turbo engines. It was something that was super, super unique. That was $640,000. It's trading right now at, I believe, $715. So it's up a little bit from the IPO, which was in January of last year. What's
one share of that Lambo cost? What's a fraction of the Lambo?
That one went live was $129. I think it's edging closer to $150 right now.
It's so crazy, the concept that you can own a fraction of a Lambo. Like, it's a joke when we say you can own a fraction of a Bitcoin because people don't get that and they really want to own one, but you've never been able to own a fraction. That's what we used to say when someone who could never afford a Lambo would be like, oh, you can always just buy a fraction. But now you can't.
Yeah, that's right. It's insane. It opened the door for us. Like, the idea that we always thought, like, fractionalization we knew was going to be a thing. How we got there required crypto. Like, it required Bitcoin. It required some of the user interface that exists only in the last 3 or 4 years for everybody, everyday people to understand that owning a fraction of something was possible and trading fractions was possible. Yeah. And you add the Lambo element to it, and it's like the idea that, everybody was making believe they were buying Lambos or buying Lambos.
Exactly.
We took the whole thing and packaged it up like that, specifically based on crypto. Like that was what opened the door for us without question.
That's wild. What? All right, your other offerings. We just had a sports collectible for $132K. Did I read that right? A pack of cards.
We did this 1952 Mickey Mantle card, which is one of the most iconic. When you Google like rare baseball card, there's only 2 that show up. One is that Mickey Mantle card. The other is this T206 Honus Wagner card, which we're actually doing in 2 weeks, which is a 1 of 60. So those are cards that in the ethos of card collecting, they're like holy grail type stuff. So this was. Yeah. We did 1,000 shares of that. That was our first sports card offering outside of the standard stuff we've been doing. And that was a $132,000 initial offering, 1,000 shares. It's got something like 300 investors, and that sold out in about 5 minutes. So that's kind of when we look at the benchmark of where we want to go going forward. That community of just sports card enthusiasts is massive, and they understand like what the investment worthy pieces really are. And they show up when it's time to sort of, do the initial offerings of those items.
I'm thinking Gary Vee's going to show up if you keep pulling out these rare cards. That guy's all about the cards. He is hustling with the cards.
That's kind of what we're doing. I think that anyone who's bringing attention to the space is someone that we support, and we hope for that support in return as well.
Yeah, I would be very surprised if he didn't show up at one of those IPOs. Well, how big is the sports card market versus cars? Collectible cars has to be the biggest market, I imagine. Maybe jewelry rivals it, I bet.
Yeah, I mean, they all kind of live together in this. It's weird because like the collectors who have the most have everything. Like they're not collecting just cars. They have cars and baseball cards and wine and watches. They're just people that collect and they get access to the best possible stuff. That market, like the collector car market, is for the most part based in a lot of the primary sales, and a lot of it's U.S. based. You're talking about a $10 to $20 billion marketplace. In terms of total addressable market on baseball cards alone, you're talking about 10 to 20 billion. But in sports cards and collectibles, it edges 100 billion easily, just in what's traded in primaries every single year, because you have like the hobbyist, the enthusiast, and the investor. All of those mixed together, you have a massive marketplace.
You probably know how they perform better than I do. You've been tracking Porsches and all these cars later. I love cars, absolutely obsessed with them, especially the Teslas. But I don't know how these things perform, like through bull markets, through bear markets. Do they have cycles? I mean, what does this look like?
But in terms of store of value, like we try and educate as best as possible, and we can't speak to the future. But if you look at just 2008 to now, you have cars, collector cars, and the best of the best, the blue chip stuff that we get, has outperformed the market. So you're talking about anywhere between 7 and 15% returns over that period. But what you're seeing that's interesting is that during down periods for equities, you get this flattening out, where I think a lot of the collectors, what we've seen is that they don't sell the stuff they care about most. That's when they hold on to it or they buy more. I think they see that, having lived through 2008 and lost a lot of money in equities personally, if I had access to alternative assets, I probably would have been putting money there, but it didn't exist at that point for me from a consumer standpoint. So we're always trying to educate on that. Then you have things like that Mickey Mantle card. Again, we can't speak to the future, but that's a card that has a great history, has also never had a down year since it came out. It's been gaining in value every year.
Oh my gosh.
And then you think about like the academic studies that go with stuff like the Hermes Birkin bag, which has 35 and 40-year studies that speak to the way it's outperformed any marketplace around it for alternative assets and for sort of the S&P and real estate and gold and the standard investments. So they've done well. Obviously, like there's never a promise of the future. Anything can happen any day. But we're trying to find the best quality stuff. So at least what we're bringing to market is one that we truly do believe in. It's not like find anything off the street on eBay and throw it into the app. We're trying to find best possible stuff that at least follow that trajectory to this point.
Best possible stuff. And it all seems to have, I think the one commonality here is they're almost all scarce, right? You're really looking for scarce assets in a lot of ways. What's like the strangest asset you've brought on that didn't really fit the mix, but it still probably did well?
Yeah, we're actually, to this point, the one that's done the best that we didn't expect. I think that Hermes Birkin bag was one that it was a more recent version, but it was very exotic skins. It was something that had a really interesting story. It was brand new, which is rare. That's a bag that's looked at as an investment piece, but there's a 3 or 4 year waiting period for the particular one that we have. And that to see this bag, which is it's a 25 centimeter bag. It's not that big, and it's marketed at $60,000 and $70,000 in certain stores. It was crazy. Like that was without question. It was nuts, but I knew we needed it. Then there's stuff in the future when we think about the intangible assets and where we want to go. There's crazy stuff that we get offered, like pieces of the redwood forest. We get for like energy credits and stuff that goes with that.
Oh my gosh.
We're looking at fossils and stuff from the Titanic, just crazy stuff that has really historical significance that really hasn't had a market. It's when you speak about rarity, these are real one-of-ones where the market has never really set the price because they're museum pieces. It's been something that has either been looked at as we need to hold on to this for posterity purposes, or we need to sort of figure out a way to sort of get it to the people, but never looked at as sort of like, what if we had to put a price on it, what would it be? It's just insurance value right now. So those are the things that are really interesting to me too, where the market can really dictate what the value of that object is.
Yeah, you've been in Bitcoin for a while. I'm pretty curious. Have you ever thought about NFTs? Is that something you guys have looked at? Like those non-fungible, these unique tokens or unique assets. Who knows what they're going to be? Whether they're gaming tokens or play some kind of role in a digital world. Have you looked at those? Is that potentially going to be in the platform? Yeah.
It comes up, and something that we think about intangible assets, and like when we think about going into sports or some of these personalities in esports and things. It's something like that is a no-brainer for us, and just intangible assets in general. I think when we started this platform, we started thinking about tokenization, and there was still so much there wasn't enough sort of opacity or there wasn't enough insight into what would happen between a utility token versus a security token.
Sure,
and there was no real opinion yet. And it was something where in 2016, 2017, people were still confusing ICO with Bitcoin, with the greater crypto market, with blockchain, all the buzzwords. So we kind of whiteboarded so many different opportunities out, and the NFTs was one of them, and we never got back to it. It's something that things have been going so well to this point, and we have such a great relationship with regulators that we don't want to even go that route.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like the situation where you have sort of, a solution trying to find a problem. We don't really need that right now. We're trying to think about what tangible assets look like, but as soon as we get to intangibles, that's a no-brainer for us to start thinking about what that looks like.
I'm with you. I was just thinking, I did no idea that sports cards did that well, but the NBA was proposing something. There's a company they're going to partner with, but they essentially were going to offer these digital playing cards. You'd like scan it on your phone or hold it, and you could somehow verify that it's one of one or whatever it might be, but it would be like a highlight. So it'd be like, who the hell hit that three-pointer? That three-pointer last year is like like Kawhi Leonard 3. You could have that moment and then plays in your phone, but you're like the only one with that camera angle, something insane like that. There's so many possibilities there.
And we want to do that with like a great partner. We think about like even with tangible assets, a little bit like bringing those to life in a way where we have this moment in time captured with a thing that we can kind of add to it. That's where we want to go. And I think that the NBA is like interesting. We're thinking about ways, and we, without getting into too much detail, we have some partnership opportunities that we're talking about right now. And sports is a big one where you have these moments in time which have so much value and nostalgia. For me, thinking back on like Michael Jordan and, at certain NBA Finals games and knowing and that poster moment that was literally a poster on my wall, bringing that to life for moments that are happening real time now, I think that's an awesome way to think about how we could securitize that and turn it into real stock.
You did have you had a partnership that made some waves lately. I saw it on your Twitter page. Deshaun Watson was involved in one of your offerings. How does that work? What's the partnership there?
It's weird because you meet so many of these guys and you see it with like Spencer Dinwiddie in the NBA who's thinking about securitizing a piece of his contract, and you see it with Russell Okung and some of these guys who really understand crypto, and they go to bat for it on Twitter all day. They understand what equity means, and they want to be a part of platforms who are providing that equity for the things they care about. Yep. So Deshaun was kind of a mutual friend and a close friend of mine as one of his agents, and we were at dinner like a year and a half ago talking about all the stuff we're working on. And it's like, yo, there's ever opportunity to be a part of it, let me know. We were like, we're not quite at scale yet. It might not make sense, but we want to be able to sort of bring these people who care about what we're doing, who have a platform, into the platform. So that was something that immediately we started thinking about. We showed him a bunch of the assets we were working with maybe 2 or 3 months ago. And he was like, this one's awesome. I have this, and I'm thinking about doing this. And it became a really natural partnership. And now from that first one, we have a few more lined up now. In 2 weeks, Jalen Ramsey, who's on the Rams, is doing one with us as well. We're taking his Ferrari, putting it on the platform. It's something that meets all the criteria, and it's something that long term, I think, to bring these elements and these assets out to a group of people who follow a person or understand a sport or do it in a way where they want to be a part of what that person's doing. For us, it makes all the sense in the world, especially with the way that equity and finance are working now, where athletes in general, they understand like how important ownership actually is. So the ethos is already there and the mindset's already there.
I'm curious, is there ever going to be like a tiered ownership? Let's say Jalen Ramsey puts that Ferrari up and I want to get, A-class shares of that Ferrari and I get to drive that Ferrari once a month or something. Have you ever had thought about that? I'm sure you have.
Yeah,
different rights there.
Roadmap right now. I think get a little bit nervous. I don't know, but like we always want to sort of keep the museum quality stuff at museum quality, but doing stuff where you have that shared ownership potential, especially as an investor who maybe has X amount in their account or is invested in 3 or 4 individual assets, we're going to have a whole other block of stuff that it kind of works like Class A shares with the ability to without having to sort of issue Class A shares where you have sort of reputation on platform and you have sort of seniority on platform, getting access to that cool stuff and having that true tangible ownership for an extended period of time is definitely on the roadmap.
Is anyone else trying to copy you guys, or are you still the only one? I mean, this is pretty wild hearing about this.
That's good. That's a good thing, right? When people are trying to copy you, that means you're doing something right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's 3 or 4 people in the space, but they're all like 1 degree separation away from us, and a lot of them literally copied and pasted some of our offering circular stuff. And I think that in terms of first mover, we had that advantage, but we want to make sure like everyone that's coming into this space now, I think a lot of it is cash grab. People see something that's worked and it's rushed something out as quickly as possible. And I think we see some of the missteps that they're going to make down the line because, it took us 5 years. It took us to get to a point where we have a great relationship with all of our partners, great relationship with the SEC, great relationship with our users more than anything else, like this community of members that we've built. And they sort of, they insulate us a little bit. They show up every time we do something and they defend us on Twitter, and they always make sure that anyone who's doing something new knows who Rally is. And that's always been really helpful for us. And so our focus for the next year is really continuing to sort of harbor that relationship with the community and make sure that we build out things they care about. And there'll be other people in the space, but like anything else, it's our responsibility. You do something new and you break a little bit of ground, you're gonna have people that come after you. That keeps us on our toes a little bit though, so that's good.
Yeah, it's going to happen. That's just so wild. I had no idea. I really wouldn't expect people to be treating it. It's almost like they've formed a little cult mentality. It's almost like the HODL mentality that we have here in Bitcoin. I mean, people are really treating it like that in a way. Have you thought about doing, have you seen those physical Bitcoins? You thought about doing one of those?
Yeah, that was the thing. Like, I'm old now, man, but I was younger and there'd be like the infomercials for like the minted coins and it was a special thing that went with like a championship game or something. I was like, I need that. And that's, I think, like the idea of now someone getting like kind of scammed by buying an actual Bitcoin on the internet and saying like I have a Bitcoin and realizing that's only a piece of metal.
Yeah.
I understand how it happens a little bit, you know what I mean? And like having physical pieces though is so important to so many people.
Yeah.
You want to provide that. That's kind of where this whole idea came from. It's the physical sort of representation of the HODL mentality without question. Like people that show up, they come and see their investment down in our showroom all the time.
It's just so wild. There's so many synergies. Rob, this has been fascinating to learn about. Just so people that are checking you out for the first time, this series, as we're talking about store value assets, I imagine we're going to lose some Bitcoiners right now. They're going to start investing in Lambos and might not come back. We're going to keep talking about other assets. But for people that are checking you out for the first time, for people that are checking out your platform or in New York want to stop by, what's probably the asset you're most excited about bringing to the platform, or something you're most excited about that you can actually share? You said stocks and those other things all becoming kind of this massive platform on Rally Road, allowing a person to control their investments and be in this and also hold their stocks. What else are you working on that's maybe not out there, maybe you haven't said yet, or you're excited about?
I think there's some really, I love all of it. I would be lying to you, like I can't invest in any of it, but I'd be lying to you if I said I didn't believe in it. And we put our money where our mouth is. We take it off the books to make sure that we're investing alongside everybody. But, to me, like growing up and loving sports and understanding what that was is a huge part of what we're doing for the future. But, I was also a fine art major, and my first thing that I wanted to ever draw was like pictures of cars. And that's like my whole childhood. So anything that has that nostalgia, but also creates value or has those returns is something we're going to be a part of. So part of what we do is we make sure there's something for everybody. So, I'm not carrying around an Hermes bag, but I understand there's value there. And if you want to learn about it, it exists in the app too. You don't have to invest. You can just learn about what it actually is. So next time around, when we have another version of it, if you want to get involved, you're armed with all the information you need to make that purchase.
Good deal. And you can track the performance right in the app, right? People won't be staring at charts anymore. They can check the app right there, see your portfolio.
Yep. We try to do it in a way where it mimics a lot of things that everybody's used to, whether it be an eToro or Robinhood or Coinbase. So you're getting those same sort of equity style charts. You're getting all the detail. You're also getting like a lot of notes about what the cultural influence looks like and who cares about it. And then we also put the whole offering circular in there too. So if anybody's interested in the 380-page document that explains how the whole back-end process works, it's all there for you as well.
I'm sure there's people that read a lot of white papers. Someone's going to check it out. Rob, where are you guys at?
For sure.
Where are you guys at? I'm in New York in 2 weeks. I want to stop by and check out one of these IPOs or check out one of these cars. Where's the store at?
Right on 250 Lafayette. So we're right in the middle of Soho on Lafayette between Prince and Spring. We want to put it in a place where we get a lot of walk-in traffic, where people walk in and just ask, what is this? And that's kind of what we get all day. So that's what we're looking for. Good
deal. Well, I'll be one of those people. Rob, this is a pleasure. For everyone checking them out, follow Rally Road on Twitter. You can follow Rob. All his info will be down below. If you're watching this on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, you guys know where to go. Rob, thanks so much for joining, man. We're going to keep this Store of Value series rocking. This was awesome, dude. I'll see you soon.
Thanks so much, man. Sincerely appreciate it.
Cheers.